Let me switch this over. Okay, great. So I'm Joshua Fontana from Boundary Systems, and we're going to be talking about what's new in piping and cabling with Creo 4. So this is going to be a relatively short presentation today. There is a lot of good advances in cabling and piping, a lot of things that people have been asking for a while. So let's see what the agenda is all about. So, of course, we'll be going over piping and cabling extension with Creo 4, and then we'll do a little introduction for Boundary Systems, and then I'll go over the material. So I'm actually going to be going over the material. I'll be popping in and out of the software from the slides in this demonstration, and then afterwards we'll do a question and answer. So about Boundary Systems. Boundary Systems is a tech leader whose partners include PTC, Solid Thinking, eTraj, and ZWCAD. And we're the 16th fastest growing private company in the greater Cleveland area, whose capabilities include data management, CAD design and consulting, simulation, and more. And this is just a list of some of our customers, as you can see here. So we have a wide array of customers that we handle. So some of our awards have come from the Inc. 5000 and the Weatherhead 100. And we also have major accreditations in the field of, we are a wind chill certified implementer, a PTC preferred service provider, and a certified training partner also through PTC. So we can handle all of your training needs. Okay, so some of the solutions that we offer include PTC solutions like Creo Parametric, Solid Thinking solutions, eTraj, and ZWCAD, which is our 2D drafting software. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to toss me an email at jfontana@boundarysys.com. And if you have any sales related questions, like you want to know how much piping and cabling extension is, or any other sales related questions, feel free to contact sales@boundarysys.com. Okay, so let's jump into the cabling extension. So the electrical design portion of the webinar here. So here's a list of the improvements that I found with the cabling package. So improvements with the reference designation, spool names, also fixed length failures. The route cable dialog box has been improved. Also, making relations for your cabling so that it can change if it's going through, in this case, a hole diameter. And then also changing your cables. You can put them in and out of bundles as we need to now. Okay, so for reference designators, so now reference designator is searchable. So here in the graphic, as we see, here's a search tool. We can actually have one of the criteria properties be designation, and then search for that reference designator, and then it'll highlight it in the graphics window. Okay. Another nice thing is before in Creo 3 and prior, the reference designators, whenever you displayed them in the graphics display, they were all over the place. And sometimes whenever you're zoomed in on a specific item, you would have to manually move those reference designators closer to the actual component so you can see what the reference designators were. So now there's actually a refit button for those reference designators. So all those reference designators associated with your view in that component will automatically come back into view whenever you refit them. Okay, so that's pretty powerful. So I'm actually going to show you that real quick. So if I go and so here's this P-bot assembly. I'm going to go ahead and go to the internals here. So we can see the internals of this assembly with the electrical and piping systems. Okay. So we have some connectors here. Let me go ahead and go into the cabling package as we see, and then turn on reference designators. So right now I have a few reference designators here pointing to their components, but the other ones are out in space here sometime. So I could zoom out and then figure out where they are, but now in Creo 4 we can actually use this refit reference designator. And once I do that, now these reference designators come back into display. So now I can see them. So that's pretty nice. Before, again, you would have to zoom out and try to figure out where it is. And some of these are pretty lengthy. Some of these reference designators, as we can see here, pointing all the way down here. So before, it was quite cumbersome to try to figure out where they were. Okay, and the other thing here is the searchable reference designators. So if I go, let's say find, and I want to keep my search criteria relative to this assembly. So I'll go ahead and change my look for to solid model. There we go. And then in the properties, I can change it from update control to designation. So then I can search for a designator. Okay. So in this case, I'm just going to type in something I do believe is there, like C59, and then I'll say find now. Okay, that one don't seem to be there. There we go. So there is a component there. Okay. So now, again, those reference designators are searchable. So next is here we go. Nope, still going over to the other one. There we go. So next is the ability to create reference or to create relations in your cabling. So you can create relations between the diameter of a cable and of a cable bundle and the hole feature of which it goes through in this case. So we see the relation over here in the relations dialog box is B4 underscore diameter equals cable thick, which is the function. And then what we have here is this B4, which is the bundle name, and then this 10049, which happens to be the location right here where it goes through. So this reference it's using for location, that's the actual location number. Okay, so then you can utilize this information and change the diameter of this hole. So every time your bundle changes size, your hole automatically updates. Okay, so it can actually fit. Okay, and here's a short video showing that feature. So again, we'll go into the cabling package and find the location ID. So there's the 10049 location and the bundle name. So then we can go into relations and then type in the B4 diameter, and that's going to be the relation name, and then the function, which is the cable thick, and then the bundle name and location identification number. So we actually want it to have a little bit larger than the bundle, so we're going to add an extra couple thou here. A couple hundredths. And then of course you should verify before you exit. So then we'll go into the actual part and change the relations associated with the part. So we can change the hole diameter So we'll just select that hole diameter there and then set that equal to the relation that we just created, which is that B4 diameter relation. So once we regenerate, we'll see the hole automatically update to accommodate that bundle. And of course, I could always go back and modify the offset for that number to apply more clearance. Okay, so next is appending wires and cables to bundle branches. So initially, and if we have this condition where we have a new wire we just routed and we want it to be inside of the existing bundles, so we have a free wire, we can actually attach that wire to the bundles that already exist. And if you utilize the config option prompt underscore exact underscore from underscore branches, then you actually have options associated with which bundles it goes into and which not. Okay. So let me show you that real quick. And I feel like there was a slide skip somewhere. Yes, there was. Okay, so the other new thing is in the cabling package is the spool names and the model trees. So if you recall how it was before in Creo 3 and prior, the spool names were not the actual names of the spools whenever you create them. Now they are. So this is how it looks in the model tree. So if you create a spool called green_1, or if you bring in a spool from logical references, then it'll be displayed in the model tree as it is named. So we see there's two different icons here down in this image of the model tree. So many of these have been created with logical references. This one at the very bottom I manually created to show you the difference of the icons. So these were created via logical references, and the one at the bottom was just manually created. And then identifying and resolving fixed length failures. So now, whenever you have a wire that has a fixed length and maybe you move a component, of course, it won't be able to regenerate that length anymore. So you'll be able to easily resolve that. And I'll show you that here. And then also there's a more intuitive route cable dialog box. So really the only difference here, it looks very much the same. The big difference here is that there's an options pull down right here with the preview, allow undesignated coordinate systems, and allow locations options there for your selection. So that's honestly really the only difference that I've noticed. Before, you would have to actually right mouse button in the from or to fields and able to utilize either one of those options. Okay, good. So now we're back here. So let me show you some of those other updates. So the model tree. So let me go ahead and get rid of these reference designators so they're out of the way. I'll zoom in here. So if I take a look at where all of my spools are, all of these spools here were created with logical references that I imported via Creo Schematics. Okay, so again, that has a different icon. So if I create a new spool using the standard methodology, I'll just create a wire spool and maybe name it 16 red SXL. Okay, I'm just going to leave these parameters default just to show you. We'll say OK, and then done. So I see down here this spool created is the exact same name as what I created it as, which is really nice. Let me drag this up here. Okay. So before they had some other naming convention that I wasn't familiar with, and it wasn't very logical. So I'm glad they updated this. So the other thing is the fixed length failures. Let me come over here. So with this item, let's say I take this existing wire here, and let's say I fix the length. So I'll go ahead and fix the length of this wire relative to this location and this location. So we'll fix that to maybe 14.8. Okay, so now whenever I move, let's say I edit the position of this connector, and we'll delete this constraint. So I can just drag this out here a little bit, and then I'll just fix that just to show you. And let's regenerate. So I see we get a notification immediately that the red wire that was there has failed regeneration. So what's nice about this is that I can go into the notification center and I see what has failed, and I can just delete that fixed length. So I'll free up that fixed length there, and then it'll ask me if I really want to remove that fixed length condition. And we see that it automatically regenerates again because it knows where to go to and from. Okay. So that's an easy way to resolve your fixed length failures. So next is the more intuitive route cable dialog box. So I'll route a couple wires here. So we got a lot going on in this model. So I actually want to route a couple of wires from these connectors down to these connectors. So we'll go ahead and go to the route cables dialog box. And we see it looks exactly the same. We have almost. The only difference is this options pull down here where we have a preview or allow undesignated coordinate systems or allow locations. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just find a couple of these wires I had placed here before. So it knows where to go to and from these locations to these locations. We'll go ahead and hit apply to display those and place them. Okay. So now I have my two extra wires here. But currently they are not associated with this bundle that's right here. So I want these wires to be bundled along this path also. So I can go in and modify the bundle and then add the wires that I want to. So these two wires here I would like to add to that bundle. So I can say OK. Now they get propagated into that bundle appropriately. And of course, if that was undesirable, I found out later I could always extract them from the bundle. And they are now routed on the outside of that bundle. Okay, so next let's talk about the piping. So what's new with piping? Piping, now Pro Table has been replaced with CSV files. So that's one thing, you don't have to utilize Pro Table anymore. And all your setup files have been consolidated, so there's less setup files to manage. And then generating your fitting files from 3D models. So if you have large family tables, then you can generate them of your fittings. Then you can generate those fitting files from your 3D models. Okay, and then your validation tools have been updated, and branching improvements in non-spec-driven piping. Okay, so again, Pro Table has been replaced with your comma separated value files. So what you can do is utilize Excel to create your tables and then output that to a CSV file. So it works pretty well. you're probably wondering, what about the consolidation? So really, whenever you consolidate those files, there's fewer files to manage in Windchill, easier to maintain library, and of course, less possibility of error whenever you're manipulating those files, and you can always make changes faster. So I thought this graphic was pretty helpful. I found this in the Creo Help Center. And this is about converting your legacy files to the new format, if that's desirable. So you can see here a bunch of the information from the old PTD files is getting brought into this Excel file, okay, and then saved off. So a bunch of these individual files get propagated, or the information at least gets pulled into one file. Okay, and then generating your fitting files from 3D models. So what you can do, if you have existing family tables that have your fittings created in them, then you can simply go to, as we see here, once we're in the piping package, we can go to the setup, pull down, and then select fitting file. And it'll generate an Excel file for us, basically. So it extracts that information from the model and puts it into an Excel file. And you can do multiple files at once also. Okay, and then the validation tool. So this tool you can use to validate the piping catalog and sort the results by file type, file name, or status. So in the piping catalog data report dialog box, that's what the options for sorting are. So if there's missing files in your database, then it'll prompt you and tell you there's missing models or files, as we can see here in the graphic. Or if there's invalid names within your Excel files, then within your databases, then it'll prompt you there also. Okay, and then next is the branching improvements in non-spec driven piping. So before there was the menu manager you had to utilize for your branching. Now branching in non-spec is pretty much the same as spec-driven piping, where we have a dialog box that's much easier to use whenever we're trying to branch from one pipe to another. And we see we have the same type of dimension control at the start or the end of the segment, and you can control the angle regardless of the change. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you some of the piping also. So we'll just utilize the same assembly since there's some existing pipes here. So again, if I go to, let's go ahead and exit the cabling package. And we'll go into piping instead. So here we have the check piping database, okay? So we can go in here and it'll cycle through the database to see if there's any errors or any other problems with those databases. So up here we basically just have sorting options, okay? And then we can also group them. But what's nice about this is that it'll show you, in this case, there's an invalid value in one of our databases. So I can open that up right now in Excel, and then I can modify that immediately, and then I can save it. and it'll be fixed. So this also tells you exactly where it is. So it says C row 5, okay? So there's a problem with row 5 here. So this value, this steel value, is improper. So I have to change the material file to what it's supposed to be and then save it off. And then once I regenerate, the errors go away. Okay, and the other big improvement that I want to show you is actually non-spec driven. So let me go to a different assembly here. So here's a simple assembly I created. So I want to actually take an existing pipe segment and link it up to another existing pipe segment. So in able to do that, we need to do a branch. Okay, so I'll say route pipe and then select branch. So again, instead of the menu manager, we get a nice dialog box. So I can select the pipe segment that I want to branch to, and then we have dimensional control as needed. So there's different dimensioning schemes that you can swap out also. So maybe if you don't want a length, you want a ratio value instead. So if you want to go 80% of this length or 50% of the length, then you can do that. Or if you want to be offset from a selected reference. So in this case, if I want it to be offset from maybe this surface over here, then I can have that dimension instead of the default selected references of the pipe segments. Okay. So then I can hit OK to accept my value. And I have my pipe branching there. Okay, so again, if you have any further questions, feel free to, if you have questions now, you can type them into the questions pane, or you can toss me an email at jfontana@boundarysys.com. And again, if you have any sales related questions, feel free to contact sales. So let me check real quick to see if there's any questions so far. Okay, I'll wait another minute to see if you guys have any questions. In the meantime, I would like to show you the Boundary Systems website. So if you go to boundarysystems.com, you see that we have some hands-on workshops coming up and our future webinars. So you can register for any of the hands-on workshops, which are for free. They're just events that one of our engineers go to and will give a small presentation, and then you actually get to utilize the software. So it's basically free training for you. So there's a couple events coming up in Cincy and Columbus and Cleveland. So there's some other locations here. Feel free to contact Connor for any more information, or if you want to register also with Flow EFD, you can register for that event. And again, we also have webinars just about every Wednesday. So you can register for any one of those webinars, and topics range from any wind chill topics or Creo Parametric. There's Flow EFD, flexible modeling, as you can see there. So feel free to go ahead and register at any one of those events also. And our training schedule also. So we have training that we provide in Creo Parametric or many other PTC classes, also wind chill. So we have detailing, admin, milling coming up, cabling coming up soon here in Cleveland. So if you are looking to learn more about the cabling package, feel free to register for this class. Okay. Let's see if there's any other questions coming in. Well, I'm not seeing any questions so far. So I'll go ahead and complete the webinar here. Thank you for your time and have a good day.